the webinar. There is a questions section on your sidebar. Please feel free to type any questions in throughout the presentation, and we will answer them at the end. Now, here's Greg Holzrichter, VP of Marketing with Atlantis Computing.
Thanks, Carrie. So thank you all for joining us today. And today I'll be sharing some exciting news from Atlantis Computing regarding the recent launch of our Atlantis ILIO USX solution in the market on Tuesday of this week. And we're very excited to share with you, our partner community, the update about the technology and a little background about where Atlantis has been, where we're going, and why this matters to you as our partners. We think that this really is one of the more important announcements that you'll hear this year, actually, in the technology industry. This is a big game changer, and we think it's going to transform the storage industry as you know it today. So before I talk a little bit about Atlantis USX, I'll give you just a level set of information about Atlantis Computing and what we've been doing. We are a 100% software-only solution, a company that's focused specifically on reducing and removing the bottlenecks and inefficiencies of virtualized workloads as they are presented to shared storage. And we have focused since 2009 on this particular use case, specializing on desktop virtualization and VDI in particular, because this is the workload that suffers most from many virtualized desktops writing to shared storage at once. This famed I/O blender effect that it has caused, performance challenges and inefficiencies for years. As a result of focusing on this use case, we've had tremendous success. We have hundreds of enterprise customers and over 500,000 licenses sold to date, 90+% of that through the channel. And so we really have been focusing on our channel partners, training our channel partners, optimizing, and bringing this solution to market that really changes the economics of storage in VDI. And as a result, we've become a de facto standard in many reference architectures across the industry. Some of our largest customers to date include JPMorgan Chase, which started out early with Atlantis and has now rolled out upwards of 100,000 seats across 18 data centers. Colt Technologies in Europe, where we were named last year the Innovative Vendor of the Year. We have a very strong partnership with Colt and are supporting their over 10,000 seat desktop as a service offering, and many other companies across both the U.S. and Europe and worldwide. Over 50% of our revenue actually now, in fact, comes from outside the United States. And one of the things I think that's really interesting about Atlantis is that because we've chosen to go to market as a software-only solution, we're very partner and channel friendly. And so we have deep partnerships with VMware, Citrix, strong go-to-market with IBM in addition to reference architectures, and talk a little bit more about some of the exciting things happening with the next generation X6 technologies. But it's a great proof point for our in-memory deployments of USX. HP actually is now reselling Atlantis, and we have reference architectures that we launched back in VMworld Barcelona timeframe in the fall of last year. Deep partnerships over the years, and now a bundle being launched with Dell. Cisco was a strategic investor in Atlantis, and we continue to do a lot of work together, as well as with VCE. And more recently, great partnership with NetApp, both on the EF Flash line as well as FAS. So really excited to be partnering with some of the big names of the industry and really taking this software to market as a result. And because we focus so much on the desktop virtualization use case, we've been very fortunate to win multiple awards, including the Best of VMworld, Best of Citrix Synergy, Storage Magazine Award, and industry thought leaders who have recognized that this software-only approach with the optimizations that we bring with the way that we deploy in the hypervisor upstream from that I/O blender effect really is a game changer and has really changed the way that people are thinking about how much you need to spend per desktop and what kind of performance you can get for your end users. And often the refrain that we use is better than PC performance for much less the cost than a PC. Often we'll give 4 or 5 times better than a MacBook Air performance for a lot cheaper. So this has actually fueled a pretty dramatic rise in the number of customers and the amount of revenue that we've enjoyed. In fact, we've grown at over 100% per year, year over year. And the thing I like about this slide in particular is that it's up and to the right, which is always good, but it's up and to the right and getting steeper. We're increasing the rate of growth, and the flywheel now is really spinning. And in 2011 is really where you can see this inflection point where things really started to kind of open up for us, and part of that was our investment in the channel. So we've really focused a lot of time and investment and resource in our channel. We have 2-tier distribution in Europe now. We've spent a lot of time over the last 12 months signing up additional distribution, in addition to our direct sales organization. So we have coverage in Holland, in Germany, in our headquarters for Europe in London, in Italy, and we're continuing to double down, and we expect to at least double the number of Atlantis employees in Europe in the next 12 months. And actually that talks to growth as well. So 12 months ago, the company had 45 employees. 12 months later, we have over 160, and we expect to double again in the next 12 months. So pretty dramatic growth, great industry sort of recognition and award-winning technology, and a lot of focus on going to market around this desktop virtualization use case. But again, that's really 5 to 10% of the overall virtualization market, and the vision has always been to bring this groundbreaking, very different approach and the benefit to any virtualized workload, which is what we are doing now with our USX product. And in order to kind of give some context around that, I'll give you a little bit of history here. And so, as you work with virtualization clients day in and day out, the benefit of virtualization, server virtualization, was unmistakable. I was at VMware for almost 5 years, and we always talked about server consolidation, this concept of one application, one dedicated server, storage, completely changed. And once you were able to insert this smart software layer, you were able to take advantage of the power of the underutilized servers. Many of the servers 10 years ago were running at 10, 15% utilization in the data center because IT was petrified of having more than one application running at a time. So with this smart software layer, this concept of encapsulation, server consolidation, what I'm showing here on the left-hand side of the graph in the yellow line is the number of physical server shipments has sort of petered off in terms of the growth rate, but the number of virtual machines has continued to skyrocket. So if you're on the server team, if you're a CIO, fantastic, you've been able to bend that cost curve on the servers, but there's been this unintended consequence, unfortunately, of downstream effects and increased storage growth, which is what we're seeing on the right-hand side. So you have, both the proliferation of VMs, the proliferation of data, and increased cost of storage as a percentage of the IT spend, and it's becoming a crisis in the data center. More and more of the analysts that we talk to, the end users, people are really waking up and realizing that there's been this, de facto virtualization tax that people have been spending to try to solve this performance problem of many virtual machines, writing over themselves, dealing with VMFS, and trying to get to short storage, and it's just not efficient. And so throwing additional spindles and capacity of shared storage to try to chase IOPS has been the answer for the last 10 years, and it's a really inefficient way of solving this problem. And so what I'm showing here is this concept of the silos of storage. You have an application stack, you have your hypervisor, you have a server, and then choose your type of storage on the bottom line there. Your favorite SAN vendor, your filer, your now all flash arrays, and direct attached storage. IT deploys different types of storage to meet the needs of specific applications. And any customer that we talk to tends to look at this and nod their heads and say, yep, that's how we deploy it, that's how we solve the problem. The challenge here is that with block and file storage, you have, you reach a maximum saturation of IOPS because of this inefficiency of the hypervisor far earlier than you actually consumed the capacity. And so many of the studies that we see tell us that, enterprise storage is 30 to 40% utilized. There's a vast amount of underutilized capacity out there, but because people are performance constrained in the data center, that's how it is. They've been looking for a different way of getting better performance, which in part describes why Flash has become so popular. Flash has lots and lots of IOPS, great performance, but again, what we're showing with these little dials is that you have plenty of performance, but you run out of capacity, and there's a different set of Flash as an island of storage, as a silo of storage that one needs to maintain. And then finally, over on the far right, you see direct attached storage, and for because RAM is volatile and it's been difficult to provide decent backup and high availability, IT just hasn't used that part of the resource for storage. And so, as a result, we see many of the analyst groups, Gartner included, looking at this and saying something has got to give. There's going to be a change, and we believe that there will be new types of solutions that will come to market that are going to bend that cost curve, just like VMware ESX did 10 plus years ago. You've effectively seen this movie before, and you know how it's going to end. And that's really what we're looking to do with Atlantis USX. One of the more bold claims from Gartner in their report was that, wow, 3 out of the top 7 general purpose disk array vendors will either be acquired or exit. Massive disruption that they're anticipating in in the not too distant future. And real innovation is starting to happen in software that will make the market sort of sit up and take notice and look at a different way of solving this problem. And really, this is the echo effect, I think, of IT looking at this and saying, wait, we added software and solved this problem when VMware first came around, and now Hyper-V and others. But that was the seminal moment. It was the aha, wow, there's a different way of doing this. And if you go back 10 years and think, it was usually first test in dev, it wasn't proven, and then people, validated the claim. The economics were so compelling that VMware and server virtualization was brought into more and more workloads, to the point now where many IT organizations have a 100% virtualization, a policy or goal because of the efficiency. We think the same thing is going to happen now with storage. And one of the things, again, speaking about VMware, but it's true for the IT industry in general, is this concept of the software-defined storage, software-defined data center vision. And it's an area of focus. A lot of people are writing about it and talking about it. But I think that it's a very bold vision, and one that will really transform the economics of the underpinning network, server, and storage layers, as the intelligence and the differentiation migrates up the stack, so that the VM and vCenter and some of these management layers become the center of the universe of the data center. But the key concepts of abstraction of the data plane, of separating out the control plane, pooling, being able to optimize that underlying capacity, and unifying that management so that you can get to this concept of on-demand provisioning. I think it's a very powerful vision, but it's a vision, and in order to get there, you need to have the flexible, agile underpinnings of compute, network, and storage. And really, that's what we're focused on with USX, is delivering on that vision of the software-defined storage piece of that software-defined data center puzzle. And so, what we're really pleased to announce is this evolution of, first focusing on persistent VDI and diskless VDI, a unique in-memory implementation. 12 months ago, we launched the product Atlantis ILIO for XenApp. Many of our customers and many of our partners have customers who have, vast estates of XenApp who are now looking to virtualize that XenApp. And when we virtualize XenApp, there tends to be some performance challenges that are quite well known and documented. But with the write cache issues and with the Atlantis ILIO XenApp solution, you can solve that problem without additional storage. And so this actually is our fastest growing product, and to be the very popular with our channel partners. It's because there's such a large install base and there's not as much innovation on focusing on this particular use case. It's a real differentiator and something that I invite you to continue to explore further. But again, our big vision here and what we've announced this week is this focus on virtualized server workloads and our Atlantis ILIO USX product. And so, USX is unified software-defined storage. How does that turn into USX? Well, unified software-defined. And if you talk with VMware, if you hear about their software-defined, their SDX, their network virtualization, NSX, this is sort of a similar type of concept in terms of the naming convention, and it's geared to evoke that same concept of, hey, when I deployed ESX and I got this massive benefit, we want people to have that same reaction when you are talking about USX. And we allow you to do more with the storage that you already have. And so I think that the way that we deploy with 100% software only is very differentiated and very friendly and non-threatening to both existing storage players as well as to IT. There's $50 billion plus of invested storage and deployed storage over the last 3+ years. And if you have that much investment that's 30 to 40% utilized, there's a real opportunity to get more out of what you've already invested in. And so we think that that's a very strong message that, that I'll tell you a little bit more technically how we do that. We allow you to turn direct attached storage as well into effectively enterprise storage. And so this is a very interesting one in that we bring in software, the software intelligence and the data services to provide high availability and to provide this, this ability to reduce the amount of storage in your, or that you need to use to support particular workloads and reduce the overall cost. And the concept of in-memory computing, this concept of in-memory software-defined storage, which is Atlantis USX's real differentiator, is the way that we've been leveraging memory assets, DRAM in the server, to really allow us to take the fastest resource in the stack and be able to deliver this highly kind of differentiated data service, such as inline compression, deduplication, I/O processing, and write coalescing, but doing that at memory speed, and that really is the game changer. And further, we're looking at the increased data center flexibility, and so this concept of being able to do policy-based controls to deliver optimal storage capacity and performance to each and every virtual machine using any underlying class of storage, and I'll tell you how we do that. And finally, instant provisioning, this concept of being able to really increase the OpEx to, or I should say rather reduce the OpEx, increase the efficiency of your operations by not having to provision a large VM and then wait 10 or 20 minutes for the blocks to write over for your eager 0-stick VMDK. It's an instant provisioning opportunity because of the way that we deploy. And so it really speeds up this concept of deployment of your virtual machines. And finally, the promise of automated deployment, being able to tie into your management layers, your configurations. This vision of the software-defined data center is really important. And we have REST-based APIs that allow you to do that. So this concept of doing more with your existing storage, being able to take your existing storage technology and bring spinning disk into the high performance type of environments, USX delivers on this performance claim for any type of storage. And we do this by installing as an abstraction layer. We install as a virtual machine on each of your physical hosts. Upon setup, you actually configure one time the storage that Atlantis will then manage as a data store. And what I'm showing here is then the types of protocols that we use to talk to the storage. But once we've been installed, then we actually are managing at the server level, upstream from that I/O bottleneck, this concept of data services. And so you have the deduplication, the I/O processing, the compression, the coalescing, the thin provisioning that really has served us tremendously well in the VDI use case, to the point where it's common to have upwards of 95% reduction in blocks that one has to deal with. And so you're left with 5% of the blocks in order to either commit those to local disk or to traverse a network and commit to shared storage. So in the beta testing that we've been doing with USX for the past few months, it's very frequent that we'll get 60–70% deduplication and reduction on mail and database workloads as well. So again, there's this concept of creating an efficient layer that is hypervisor resident. It installs as a virtual machine. We are in the I/O path, and we're handling these data services inline at memory speed, and optimizing the performance, the IOPS, the lower latency, and allowing you to drive up that utilization of your existing storage asset. And the key here is to think about how Atlantis basically converts server RAM into cheap and abundant IOPS, and is then able to share those across any workload. And that's really the magic. It's 100,000 times faster than spinning disk, and we're able to leverage memory in a very unique way. And so again, this is a different sort of logical view of how we're deployed, but we have this memory concept that comes up into that pool, and that's the ability of abstracting out the available server memory and flash and capacity as a performance pool as one concept that Atlantis manages, and then a capacity pool of all of the underlying storage that you have presented up to Atlantis, whether that's block, whether that's filers, whether that's all flash, whether that's a newer entrant like a Nimble or a Nutanix. It doesn't matter to us. Even a VMware VSAN, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Any of these are just treated as yet another resource that we're able to deploy high, these wire speed in-memory data services on top of. And so you have policy-based control, you have storage services that give you this high availability and auto provisioning. And one of the key differences between USX and our prior VDI products really is this concept of high availability. We spent a lot of time making sure that we have this redundancy, this HA, active-active type concept mirroring across nodes, because of the criticality of the workloads that we will be supporting as server workloads, and it just wasn't as critical for the VDI deployments. And that's really one of the key areas of focus for the USX release. Now, again, this is fourth generation code. This is the same Atlantis ILIO code base, but we've added the HA features on top of that, in addition to this concept of pooling and abstracting as one unified concept, one unified area that is managed. And that's really the breakthrough in terms of how we are deploying USX. We've also re-architected the UI so that we have these REST APIs that are callable from these different orchestration suites. And so that's another kind of key differentiator, and how we believe that we will be slotted into this vision of the software-defined data center and this automation and policy-based provisioning. And so, again, from a logical perspective, you can think of the filers, the SAN, the direct attached capacity that you have. Atlantis USX, once it's installed, will conduct an inventory of all of the resources that it sees across the network and the cluster that gets set up, and present that to a console, a management console that allows you to see the capacity that's available. Then on the secondary access, you have this concept of inventorying the available underutilized server memory in flash and local disk. And we create this concept of a memory pool or performance pool. And these two distinct pools then are made available to this new concept that we have, which is a application-defined storage volume. And this storage volume basically is a software-defined policy that is then delivered up to your different applications. And this is what I think people think about when they say software-defined storage. This truly is defined in software, and I think that's really where the name comes from. You are defining the IOPS and the capacity and the latency and the QoS for each and every application through software, abstracted away from the underlying hardware. And we are launching with 4 sort of pre-packaged profiles, if you will, that you can, at the point of provisioning, it's checkbox simple to deploy the different profiles. And so one is called hybrid, which is similar to, in concept anyway, to kind of this concept of a nimble array, where you're front-ending with fast resource, you're doing your optimizations, and then you're committing down to a shared lower tier storage pool for the blocks. You have nice high availability, and we believe that that's probably the predominant model of deployment as we get launched here with USX. At least in the beta customers, it seems to be the most prevalent form of deployment. The second profile that we offer is called in-memory. And so as you get more comfortable with USX and Atlantis and the data services and benefits that we provide, many of our beta customers are looking at these high performance applications and deploying 100% in memory. And so in this model, you're really optimizing for speed and performance, and you're not committing those blocks, the unique blocks that survive past these data optimizations down to shared storage. You're handling this 100% in memory. A third is persistent in memory, so the majority of the data set is worked and processed in memory, but you've chosen then to have some of those blocks committed down to shared storage, and so this is a little bit more protection. But again, it's optimizing for performance with some recoverability. And then finally, the all-flash model, where you're looking at optimizing and pooling of your local flash and shared flash assets. And so, this concept is, it's on the one hand, radical, but at the same time, it's this idea of being able to take a set of your existing hardware, both servers as well as storage, and configure them, abstract them, and reconfigure them in software as if it was a Nimble box, as if it was a Nutanix, as if it was SAP HANA or Extreme IO. There benefits to these different models is the reason that there's so much innovation and investment in the storage industry right now. The benefit of USX, however, is that it allows you to protect your existing investment. It allows you to protect your existing account control, and get more out of that investment to deliver credibility, to deliver added value to the IT buyers. And it's very similar, in fact, to 10 years ago when these conversations were happening with VMware and the server vendors. If I bring in this optimization layer, maybe I'm going to sell fewer boxes, but the mix of those boxes are going to change. And it got to a point where the IT buyers were aware that there was this technology and demanded that it would be included in some of these RFPs and the bill of materials. We believe that that is something that's going to happen in storage as we move forward as well. And so I mentioned VSAN, and I think that when you look at software-defined storage and the players here, there's sort of a short list of truly software-defined storage players. And there's a lot of vendors who are using the terms for older technology that's been rebranded. But one of the innovators here is VMware and vSAN. And so there's questions of, hey, are you competing with vSAN? And in fact, we're not. And vSAN deploys with servers only and creates this sort of cluster with up to 16 nodes. And it's very exciting, and they're educating the market around software-defined storage. What they actually did with us last week was tested in our lab on USX the vSAN, and we were able to bring enterprise storage in addition to the vSAN, and then insert this USX layer to be able to bring our in-memory kind of optimizations on top of this entire deployment. And so as a result, you can actually bring vSAN and USX into much larger workloads as opposed to this 16-node limit. And the testing that we've done in our labs for USX has scaled to 256 nodes and higher. And again, that goes to the legacy of our code base of scaling to 100,000 desktops plus in our largest customer. And so, being able to pool vSAN, to be able to increase the performance, and, we had some pretty dramatic results. And, I invite you to compare some of these IOPS numbers with, a recent Chuck Hollis blog who, does a great job of evangelizing for VMware. But, you can see the benefit of bringing this USX data services in conjunction with vSAN. And we think it's a great solution, again, for VDI or for other use cases. But we're thankful for the partnership that we have with VMware. And speaking of partnerships, I think one of the other things that's interesting is we've done a lot of work with IBM, great partnership, and they invited us to do testing with their USX next generation server a few weeks back before launch. And I bring it up here just as an example of where the trends are going in technology, and you have this movement of monolithic storage to more distributed. So the VMAX kind of migrating to, for example, this X6 type concept where, you have 60 cores in a 4U, 96 DIMM slots, 19 terabytes of flash on DIMM, which is this new technology of, non-volatile memory from Diablo. And 2 terabytes of RAM. And so, very, very dense, very high performance node. But with Atlantis USX on top of that, the testing that we did was, pretty dramatic. We were able to get the 19 terabytes to look like 60 terabytes of logical flash, 3.7 million IOPS out of this one unit, very low latency. and a TPCC benchmark of 4.6 million transactions. And so, the interesting concept here as a proof point is that, there's a ton of legacy traditional storage that's been deployed. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. There's an opportunity to go back to your existing customers that you've sold the traditional architectures to with USX and virtualize even more workloads, deliver this performance so that your customers can continue to deliver the performance that they need. There's always going to be a need for capacity, but I think that this concept of bringing sort of cheap and abundant performance into the data center is the real radical breakthrough that USX offers. And so, that's the technology overview and where Atlantis has been in terms of a focused player, fast-growing, 100% year-over-year on the desktop virtualization side, award-winning, extremely scalable, credible customer base, and a strong go-to-market with large industry players, which we think is a real advantage in terms of bringing this next generation in-memory software-defined storage to market. And the critical thing here is the partners and being able to educate you on how to deploy at USX, how this really changes the game and the economics of storage. And I mentioned this parallel of ESX 10 years plus ago versus today. And I think that the partners that were early adopters of ESX, who saw that this was going to change the game, were able to have a different type of dialogue with their end users, and it certainly changed the mix of what they sold. But at the same time, there's a different type of deployment, a different type of services opportunity, a different type of margin opportunity from Atlantis itself. And we believe that this is one of those things that will allow you to have, as partners, differentiation against others. You have this strategic seat as opposed to doing things the same old way. It will deliver higher margins through software, and that's one of the benefits that we've seen in our deployments and our pricing models for our VDI licensing. It really allows a great margin for partners, especially when you're faced with the alternative of buying traditional spinning disk. You can take a look at that, customers take a look at that, and your server, your Atlantis, and your storage can be a very compelling story as you bring this to market. And really, if those folks, if your competitors around the block don't work with Atlantis, this is really an unfair advantage. It's an ability to completely change the economics of enterprise storage and be able to take on additional virtualization projects to deliver performance and really kind of change that cost curve. And it really should be a way to create differentiation. So the million-dollar question, of course, is how do you price and how do you go to market? And so we launched this product on Tuesday. We are launching the pricing for USX on a capacity-based model. This is priced per terabyte in sort of 1 terabyte increments, and this is capacity managed and presented to the end user. And so, the introductory pricing, we are launching this through the channel. We invite you to communicate with your Atlantis rep, your channel rep, if you don't know who that is. We have a contact us form on the website and or through your distribution, and we'll be kind of launching this and talking about the pricing. The way that we've decided to price this, though, as a concept, is to basically reduce the cost, or be 50% cheaper than the alternative of enterprise storage. And so that's kind of the philosophy that's guiding the pricing. And we invite you to download some of the kind of third-party validation reports We're getting a tremendous amount of press interest in all the countries that we launched and did briefings over the last few months on. A great piece from the IDC analyst focused on software-defined storage that's available on the website, and more resources that we will be continuing to produce. But the availability of Atlantis through evaluation, we have a free trial link, and we are, again, making the software available through certified partners. In order to get certified, we invite you to engage with Atlantis. There will be certification courses and tracks in order to get you comfortable with the technology, with how to deploy, with how to position and price. And so all of these things are starting in earnest now. And again, we have a lot of resources that we have created on the website today, business and technical FAQs, solution briefs, in addition to more and more resources. And we will start a cadence now every week of a partner webinar in terms of training that will, again, aid in that certification process as we move forward. If you're not a current Atlantis partner, we invite you to look at our partner program and consider joining Atlantis. We are actively recruiting, and we are expecting that, as we move beyond this desktop virtualization use case and the specialization that we've had with the partners that we've gone to market with to date, we expect that this is going to open up a much broader profile of partners who would be interested in bringing this general purpose virtualization solution for any workload to market for the other 90% of the market. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Carrie for some Q&A and welcome your questions.
Thank you, Greg. Our first question that we have today is, will the VDI load also be handled by USX?
Right. So great question. So the concept for the way that we're handling VDI is that for this first version, we are separating the sort of the EULAs and the code bases so that USX really is focused for server virtualization workloads, and our current VDI products are those that we expect to be utilized for VDI. So that's kind of the licensing policy and the model that we are supporting at launch. Over the course of this year, however, we expect to kind of merge the code bases so that you have one unified platform and the ability to run mixed workloads, whether that's VDI or general workloads. And so to your comment about different read-write patterns, that's true. We can handle that, and you can handle and deploy multiple application volumes types. The application volumes that I mentioned, whether that's hybrid or in memory, you can deploy multiple of those within a single instance of USX. So if you had a database that was also running with a VDI on one instance, over time that will be possible. But in the short term, we're really focusing on USX for general server workloads.
Great. We also have, this question's a little bit more technical, but with inline deduplication and compression, is the file readable without your software, or is it saved in a special format in your own files?
Yes, so it's saved so that the inline deduplication and compression are it's content-aware deduplication and compression. So basically, we are acknowledging the duplicate writes and handling that in the server itself. So the unique writes that actually are handled that are then kind of placed down to disk, whether that's on the server or in shared storage, are in the normal format. So it's the benefit here is that you're actually just handling the unique blocks, and the rest is sort of metadata that's kind of acknowledged before you actually have to traverse the network or place down to disk.
Great. And our last question is, when will the software be available for partners to test and play with?
Yeah, great question. So we are actually, I encourage you to kind of request a copy through the free trial link. We are, as I mentioned, sort of proactively managing the certification with our partners, and as part of that, the access to the code to be able to bring that into your labs and start testing. So we're looking at opening that up and starting to kick that process off next week.
Okay, great. That was all the questions for today. So thank you all for joining our webinar. Thank you, Greg, for your great presentation. We will be having a technical deep dive next Friday that is promoted on our website, which you can access at atlantiscomputing.com/events. I will also be sending the webinar recording out later on today. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.